All right, we're going to go ahead and kick it off. Again, thanks everyone for joining today. Today's session will be focusing on another use case where process mining become a valuable tool to understanding how work is progressing through your life cycle of, in this case, a security incident, security operations. We have a couple of different use cases that we're going to go through that can speak to how it can help the outcomes for a security operations team. So quick intro with a little bit of house cleaning in terms of housekeeping in terms of how we are going to have our session today. I'm Damien Pascal. I'm one of the process mining product managers. I have a couple of special guests today. Tim Boswell, I'll let you introduce yourself, Tim, part of our product management team for security operations. Tim?
Yeah, hi everyone. Tim Boswell here. I work in outbound product management for our security products. But before that, I ran the Security Operations Center here within ServiceNow. And so I was not only a practitioner, but also customer zero of these solutions.
Tim, thanks again for joining today. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I also have a couple of special guests today. The rest of my team and the process mining side, Rosman Parpio, who is on our call today. She's based in London. I also have Dan Grady on as well. Dan, want to say a quick hello?
Sure. Hi, it's Dan. I'm part of the team with Damien.
Yep, thanks, Dan. I also have one more special guest. Bilal, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm on the Press Mining team with Damien and Dan. My name is Bilal. The product success manager for Press Mining. So it's good to meet all of you.
Thanks again for joining. A quick get out of jail slide that I must put up to make sure if we talk about roadmappy items, please do not make any purchasing decisions based on those comments or statements. We do take our input from our customers like yourselves and make adjustments to those roadmaps. So they change a lot. So we appreciate your input, but just be aware of that. I did want to share this real quick to everyone, our live on ServiceNow reoccurring events that we have a lot of different topics, a lot of them based on things like we're going to see today. But there's a quick link. You can scan that QR code to be able to sign up for additional sessions. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? What I'd like to do in all of these sessions, because I'm sure we have folks who may not have seen process mining before, do a little bit of a process mining 101, what it is, how it can help, things like that. We'll then dive into how we can use process mining to help the security operations team to optimize their operations. Using process mining, it's a continued conversation that you're already having in your data. We'll do a bit of a demo, a couple of different use cases, things like security incidents, remediation tasks, how they connect together, all of those things. And we'll dive into how that can help drive specific outcomes for your organizations, right? So, and then we'll end with questions, and please use the Q&A for questions. We have a few folks on the call who can help answer those live, and at the end, we'll spend some time just answering some of those live as well, and we'll end with some resources that are available to you, which there are a ton. All right, so let's dive into process mining. What is it? Why do we care? Why is it important? And everything we do and build in life, and whether it be, an application built from the ground up, or in this case, maybe it's how I manage the evolution and the outcome of a security incident or remediation task, maybe a vulnerability response, all of these things that I care about as a CISO, as a security SOC manager. That design path has a specific outcome, a velocity, a quality, a compliance. Those things matter. The reality of how things actually work in reality may not meet that design path for sometimes really good reasons, sometimes not really good reasons, right? And those all impact what we measure when we look at a process, right? Maybe it's an SLA of I need to close a security incident within a day or several hours. What's impacting it, right? I need to know what's impacting it so I can take action, right? So that ability to understand what really is happening is really important. And that's typically hard to do. We have the luxury within the ServiceNow platform that you already have that data. right? That design path can easily be understood. Why? Because we have the event data, right? All of the things that you do within ServiceNow is logged, right? From a timestamp perspective, how things progress from start to finish. So we can easily understand and discover how things are actually working. That's not something you can understand and see within a dashboard. Right? It's going to tell you how things are running, but that's going to tell you how it's really running within reality. And I always get the question, hey, Damien, don't we use dashboards today? We know how we're working. And that's great because it tells you exactly how you're working. It doesn't tell you why it's working the way it is. How many incidents did we close? Did we meet our SLAs? All of those things that you measure day in and day out in your dashboards within security operations workspace or any of the dashboards you may have that's relevant to your organization. When things start trending the wrong way, what happens? People start asking questions. I need to know why, my security incidents are not being closed for this priority or type within 8 hours. It's increasing the security posture to my organization. What do I need to do to correct this? That's a hard question to ask and even harder to answer. Right? Because those questions cannot be answered in these dashboards that you look at every day. I've seen this done manually in lots of different ways, with highlighters and spreadsheets. But this is where process mining becomes really relevant and shines a light of where and why those KPIs I care about are acting the way they are. Where is our process stuck? Is it conforming to our principles? Is it following the steps that I wanted to go through? Where are we wasting time? Do we have too many approvals? Which assignment group is slowing us down? Why are there security incidents being rejected? Are the remediation tasks being assigned correctly? All of those questions that could be slowing down the velocity, the quality, the compliance of my security incidents could be impacting what I care about, right? So this is why it becomes really important to start answering those questions. And this is why we say that process mining becomes the why behind the KPI, right? Understanding where and how my security incidents, and again, I'm just using security incidents as an example. It could be any of the any of the workflows that live in with your security operations team to help understand where the velocity, quality, compliance of that work is being impacted, right? Really, really powerful way to start servicing, where we should take an improvement, right? Where should we apply one? And that's really the outcome of process mining. This should become a pipeline of where a team should improve. And guess what? We have a great platform to allow our customers and empower them to create improvements in lots of different ways.
Yeah, so Damien, just real quick color commentary, if it's okay.
Sure.
So yeah, if you're on this call and you're the platform admin, or maybe, you just work in the engineering team and you support the security team or the team that uses security incident response or vulnerability response, know that your users, your security team that you support, they are constantly under a lot of pressure to improve their metrics and provide insight into their metrics. And that's where ServiceNow helps out, that the other security tools can't do that. The other security tools can say, "Oh yeah, we detected this anomaly, or we detected this vulnerability, or we identified this," but it's not going to provide those metrics, and it's not going to provide insight into those metrics as far as what's causing inefficiencies or what's creating a bottleneck. So when I was working in the Security Operations Center at ServiceNow, we were constantly under that pressure, whether it was from our compliance team, internal audit, security leadership, or even our board of directors. The board of directors were constantly asking our CISO, hey, how long does it take for us to contain an incident? And why is that number so high? It feels like that number's high. Other companies I'm on the board of directors of, their number's much lower. How can you get that number lower? And as much as we wanted things to be from point A to point B, when you're responding to a security incident or a vulnerability, it's more like choose your own adventure. And we needed to be able to dig in and understand, okay, where are those inefficiencies? Where are those bottlenecks? So then we could identify what is it that's causing that? Is it a training issue? Is it a process issue? Is it a tool that we've invested in is not working properly? And so if you're thinking, well, I'm not really a security professional, I'm just a platform admin, this is very important to you because this is how you can provide a lot of value to that security team that you're supporting.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, and going, just to add on to that, this should become a continued conversation that you're having with your data, right? That you care about. And where does this fit, right? Where does process mining fit into how, as a security operations team, to be able to leverage this as a tool to help you improve, right? And you're already doing some of this already. You're detecting through analytics, dashboards, SLA breach notifications, right? All of those things that I care about on a day-to-day basis. The next step is really, this is where process mining comes into play. Help me analyze. I see my security incident SLAs, they're trending the wrong way, or maybe we have a new mandate to improve that SLA by another, factor of, like 10%, or for example. How can we do better? Process mining gives me the ability to visualize that process map, understand the bottlenecks, give me some detectors to understand where there's improvement opportunities. And we'll show you some examples of that. And even offer an ability to quickly surface improvement opportunities based on things that you as an organization or team care about. And leverage things like machine learning to uncover and expose themes and root cause analysis that can give me evidence as a team. It's like, oh, now I see that this one type of security instance or this one team, they need better tools, or they need better routing or categorization of these incidents so they get to that team faster or better. And also leverage the unstructured data that you have in those all those workflows, like things like work note analysis. There's a treasure trove of information in work notes, and we can leverage that to surface important information, again, to understand why something is happening that we care about. The next phase, again, going back to this should become a methodology to pipeline improvements. This is where we can easily connect into things like continual improvement management or automation center to surface and pipeline things like AI agents, virtual agent topics. Maybe it's an RPA bot, predictive intelligence, where we can categorize and route work better. And may the ServiceNow automation gods strike me down. It could be just coaching, right? I need to train this assignment group better to get this work done, right? And that's also very important. And that very first one, AI agents, I have to tell you, this is really becoming super important to a lot of our customers, because they need to understand there's usually a lot of mandates. Where can we do better? Where can we automate with AI agents for specific tasks that have been deemed low value? Maybe something, a security incident or remediation task that takes less than 15 minutes to get done. Those could be opportunities for an AI agent to be created. And the last part is to monitor, right? This should become a continual improvements phase or cycle that happens over time, right? This should become a program. Because I often get the question, hey, Damien, once we do this, do we ever need to do it again? And the answer is, of course, because as we all know, the security process you had 5 years ago or 2 years ago is probably not the same that you have today. Things evolve for various reasons, maybe a new regulation, a new law, a new business requirement that forces everyone to change their process. And guess what? That impacts how we get things done. So having the ability to do this as on a cadence, be able to track this through continual improvement management, be able to track this to a KPI I care about over time, and improve and understand, did we get better as we apply changes and improvements? And that's a very common use case, right? A new regulation comes out, we put this new change in our security process. All of a sudden, our mean time to resolve has gone down by 10%. What happened? I need to understand what happened so I can take a course of action to improve based on that new regulation that came out. Okay, I'm going to continue forward. So I'm going to dive into some of the aspects And, Tim and I spoke at length about this in terms of, okay, where's the value here for security operations team? So we're going to do a little bit of a, conversation here about what some of these use cases, but the first one, right? And we kind of started off with this around security incidents. And as a SOC manager, security and incident analyst, if you think about how the flow of work happens, right, within ServiceNow for a security incident, it starts off from, opening it. There's all these different phases that we go through: analysis, contain, eradicate, recover, all of those things, right? All of those things take time, and there's perhaps different teams, different people that work on these. Understanding how they flow for, between different people and different assignment groups is really important. And based on the security type, the security incident type, maybe we want to make sure we route these to, to these different gates and different phases within a certain amount of time. Once we manage that security incident, guess what? Well, there's also response tasks or remediation tasks that are also tied to this. Those impact how my security incident gets done. That connective tissue is really important to understand. Are those response tasks slowing me down? Or do we assign those correctly? Are those getting done in an appropriate manner? Are they being escalated the way they need to? Those things can be easily surfaced. And we can do that in process mining very, very easily. We'll show you an example of that. Tim, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just so real world example. Again, when I ran the SOC, we were responsible for all the SLAs and SLOs around security incidents and other security alerts and events. But we were so dependent on other organizations within ServiceNow, whether it was IT, the SRE team, tech support, even data center people. But we owned that SLA, and oftentimes we would get beat up because the SLA wasn't looking good. And it wasn't just because I wanted the SLA to look good because I wanted to get my bonus, but it was also we wanted to make sure that we could stop the attack quickly before it led to a breach. We also wanted to prevent alert fatigue. But back to the idea that we were reliant on other organizations, when we would look at how can we improve those SLAs, oftentimes we would look at it and say, we've done everything we can to improve those SLAs. Why is it still not looking good? And we would dig deeper. And unfortunately, we didn't have process mining back then. So we would have to spend a lot of people hours doing this manually, but we would often discover that there were huge bottlenecks or huge lags when we would assign response tasks to other organizations. We discovered in some places it would take them a really long time to pick up that task and start working on it, even though it might have been a priority one task. And so we were able to go and speak with those organizations and say, hey, do you guys realize you're doing this? And oftentimes they would say, no, we had no idea. We had no clue that we were sitting on these priority one security tasks and response tasks. And it turned into a very collaborative conversation with those other teams, and we were able to add a lot of efficiencies and again improve our SLAs. Again, not just so that way our metrics look good, but to prevent a successful attack against ServiceNow and ServiceNow customers, and also to prevent that alert fatigue.
Thanks, Tim. All right, so how is this important for security incidents, right? So Tim mentioned, this helps me visualize as a SOC analyst, a SOC manager, to visualize that end to end how my security incidents are actually running from start to finish, exposing those bottlenecks. Help us even validate. And I love this use case. And Tim, love your input on this. A lot of teams and organizations use playbooks, right, to help the security analysts to deal with security incidents, right? And process mining can not only surface how work is getting done, but also can help validate those playbooks that they're using, or even automations, right? Maybe we have a playbook that's a bit out of date and perhaps even slowing down how our security incident is getting addressed. And those are great to be able to validate over time, right? And help that governance to ensure that those outcomes are being met with the tools that we have in place.
Yeah, when we were adding automation in the Security Operations Center ourselves, when we first started doing that on our own, it was a necessity. And it wasn't just because we were like, hey, we've got this great automation platform and this looks really cool. It's because ServiceNow is going through 40% growth year over year, and we just could not get out from under all of the alerts and the incidents and the vulnerabilities we were dealing with. And it was essential for us to automate much of our activity. Anywhere that we didn't need to make a decision or apply human judgment, we needed to automate. The challenge was, what do we automate first? There's so much to automate. We want to make sure that we're automating the things that are most important first. We need to be able to prioritize that. And again, because we didn't have this back then, we didn't have process mining, we had to spend a lot of time doing manual reporting, manual researching, understanding like, okay, what should we, what automation is going to give us the biggest bang for our buck, or what playbook is going to give us the greatest efficiency, or this playbook isn't working out very well. What do we need to change to that? And so today, a lot of customers that have adopted process mining for security incident response, they're able to much more quickly go in and identify, okay, where can we add automation, or where can we increase automation or tune automation and
Right.
make our operations that much more efficient?
Yeah, awesome stuff. Thank you, Tim. Another great use case, which we'll dive into, is around security incidents, and I mentioned some of the tasks that support the security incidents, like the response tasks. So one of the capabilities we have in process mining is the ability to create what we call a multi-dimensional model, right? Where we're looking at not just one workflow, but the supporting workflows that are child or even reference to it. So in this case, can we understand how those response tasks are connected to the security incident and impacting it? Absolutely. And that may not just have to be a response task. It could be, I want to understand how my SLAs are being breached, or if I have an approval or a change, right? So you can have that connective tissue easily mapped and identified to surface. Okay, well, I see we have 800 security incidents with 119 response tasks that are tied to it, and I could see it's taking way too long to get that response task even opened up for security incidents. We can do better here, right? And understanding and servicing things like bottlenecks, right? And I'll show you this in the demo to understand quickly, hey, we see our analysis. We have 22 incidents, security incidents that are having SLA breached, or it's taking way too long to go from one state to another. Let's dive into that. Going back to what Tim said, where do we focus? Where is the value? We can easily identify and surface the amount, the impact, the total duration that is locked up in those transitions, as well as, if you can see in the bottom, an example of how we can service improvement opportunities. And we'll show you some examples of that too. And those are using data detectors that we include and customers can build themselves to identify specific attributes of the workflow, things like rework and ping-ponging and repeating patterns and extreme time and compliance. You notice that last one on the bottom. Hey, we missed a contain step. That's an audit issue for my organization. We need to know about that. And surfacing the impact of that as well. One other use case I wanted to surface is around vulnerability, because if you think about vulnerability and response, right, especially the remediation task, another great use case where understanding how those remediation tasks are getting done. Again, this is just showing the remediation task. Maybe there are changes associated with it, maybe not, but certainly understanding how those are getting done. Exposing the bottlenecks. Are they getting investigated quickly enough? Are they being resolved within the SLA I need? And also exposing and being able to use machine learning to expose and investigate certain things that perhaps I don't like about this workflow. I see perhaps my awaiting implementation is taking too long, or under investigation is taking too long. I have a couple of records that are taking 3 years. Why? I need to know why that's happening, and starting to investigate. And we have a couple of different investigative tools to help our customers understand why this is happening.
Yeah, up until now, I've been referring to process mining around incidents, which is great because that's preventing the attack from going further, preventing a breach. But here on the vulnerability side, this is where we're preventing things from like controls slipping, organizations falling out of compliance, and actually having monetary fines applied to them from regulatory agencies. So this is where you can really earn a lot of money as that platform admin is applying it to vulnerability response.
Yeah, and I like the attribute of this of the compliance component, right? So, I need to pass through these gates to get my vulnerability remediation task done. I need to make sure they all step through these. This is an easy way to show that yes, all these did go through those. And when they didn't, I can now start investigating, understanding why it happened so I can address it.
Yep.
I did want to surface some common use cases. I love showing this list. It's not an exhaustive list, but certainly the ones that we run into all the time. And again, if you start thinking about this, it's meant to get the creative juices flowing for everyone in terms of how process mining can be used to identify specific things, like that very first one, on hold. I need to know why my security incident has been put on hold too many times, or remediation task, or any workflow in my SOC. Things like, hey, I need to know when work is my SLA breaches, right, for specific security incident types, or I need to know when security incidents or remediation tasks are being reassigned multiple times or recategorized, right? It's slowing down my velocity, my quality of my work. And certainly that very last one, automation opportunities, surfacing where there's opportunities for security incidents or remediation tasks, or any workflow that perhaps is considered low value that could be automated, so someone doesn't have to touch it anymore, right? And that can easily be surfaced. And even the second to the last one, right? If you think about understanding the impact of a change process, being able to understand, did our velocity and quality get impacted if in a positive way based on that change that we put into our process. As Tim mentioned earlier, we rely on playbooks, right? Did that playbook have a positive impact? Do we need to be better, right? Did it slow us down? Did it help us? So lots of great ways to expose value in your security operations teams and workflows using these methodologies. Again, this is not the only list. This is just meant to be a starter of the common ones we run into all the time. We love seeing how our customers leverage process mining in their organizations, and this is just a short list. I mentioned earlier about exposing improvement opportunities. One of the great things we have built into process mining are detectors for improvement opportunities. Now, we include specifically for security operations a content pack in the ServiceNow store that gets you started for some of these improvement opportunities, right? So, specific for security incident, and they help you detect specific activities, like you see some examples here: ping-ponging, extreme duration, repeating patterns, slow transitions, based on the activity you care about, like the state of the incident, like the assignment group changing, maybe the priority, the category. You get to decide what you care about changing through its life cycle. That very first one, rule-based, also enables our customers to build ones that are very specific to their organization. For example, you may care about, hey, this one type of security incident or remediation task, if it's not, within the eradicate phase, within one day, we need to expose that as an improvement opportunity, right? Or I need to know when this assignment group reassigns it more than twice, I need to expose it as an improvement opportunity because it's impacting a specific KPI. So it can be very programmatic. We include a few within the content pack, but guess what? They're super easy to build, and you can make them very specific for your organization. And this is an example, and I'll show you this in a demo as well, for improvement opportunities. You see some examples: long reaction time, rework, repeating patterns, reassignment, right? So again, lots of different opportunities to surface what those improvement opportunities are, and you also get to see the impact. You see the number of records, the average duration that it took to get that transition to happen, and the total impact, usually measured in years or months. And I would get questioned that, but hey, Damien, 32 years seems like a crazy number. All we're doing is simple math. It's the average duration that this is adding on to that workflow, and the number of records, right? So, and you also see we have that connection to the impacted KPI. You get to decide what that is. So again, we have that natural connection, that continued conversation from the KPI to where we need an improvement, what we care about. I did want to surface one example, right? And this one it's a very simple one, very tactical. And I will say this, so process mining can be used both in a very tactical manner or a strategic one where, hey, I need to solve for a specific problem. My SLAs for this one security incident type is becoming problematic. It's getting surfaced at the CISO level. We need to address it. Okay, well, we can use process mining to kind of hone in onto that problem. Maybe we have a hypothesis. Or it could be strategic. It's like, hey, we need to, lower our security posture. Our security posture needs to be improved by X amount this year. Where do we start looking? How do we make this better? Right? So we can use a very narrow aperture or a very large one. In this scenario, it's really about a very tactical one. We noticed over the past year, our security incidents are being reassigned 8.2%. Now, on the surface of that, not a big deal. But the business impact was real. We're getting 10 days longer to resolve that issue, compared to the ones that weren't being reassigned. 10 days longer was a serious impact. It's impacting our KPI or SLAs for security incidents. Now, so what we found was, okay, that's about 500,000 hours of potential reclaimed time that we can get back, right, in terms of addressing these security incidents. The fix was fairly simple. All we had to do was using some of the predictive intelligence capabilities that already live in the platform to ensure that we are assigning these security incidents correctly the first time, making sure we're using advanced work assignment to tune that, to get that work to the right teams the first time, and ensure that we're getting it done right without having to reassign it. So the impact of that, after we do all that, let's get really, really conservative. We get back 25% of those of our impacting time. So 146,000 hours that we could potentially reclaim in a very tactical, easy fix. Now think about doing this at scale, right? At scale, this become really, really impactful to a security organization very, very quickly.
And this can be very helpful when those security managers are trying to justify headcount. So oftentimes when I was expanding my security team, I would, and I said, oh, I need to add a couple headcount in this particular region, or I need to add 2 more people in the SOC or what have you. I was always asked, well, what are you doing to ensure that you're improving efficiency? Are you just throwing bodies at it? Are you just trying to hire your way out of the problem? And so if I had this and could go back and say, well, no, I'm actually creating budget to hire those people. Here are the things that I'm doing to improve the cost structure and the cost efficiencies around my operation. I could have easily used this to justify those additional hires.
Thanks, Tim. All right, so we're going to transition into the demo. All right, I think everyone can see my screen. Now we're going to start this from our security operations workspace, right? Which is security incident response workspace, and I always like starting from our dashboards, right? This is where, going back to, this is a continued conversation with the data. Again, I'm going to make a lot of jokes about my demo data because it's terrible, but in this scenario, what I care about are things like my average time to contain, average time to identify, are these numbers good? Maybe we need to do better, right? My trending of my security incidents over time, my security incidents by CI class over the last 3 months, really important. I need to dive into and start understanding why these numbers aren't what I want them to be, or perhaps we need to improve them. Maybe there's a mandate to get that done. And that conversation really starts within our process mining workspace, where we can start tying into those KPIs very, very easily. So I'm going to start. This is our process mining workspace, and I'm going to start into one very specific use case for security incidents. Now, I'm going to start with very specifically, do a little bit of a harbor tour of what this looks like. In this scenario, what we're looking at the very top left-hand corner is our security incident table. We're looking at, and a very we'll build one together, show you how easy it is to build one of these. We're looking at 801 security incidents over the last few months, let's say. You get to decide in scope what data you want to analyze. We also noticed there are 12 routes to closure. What does that mean? Based on the activities I defined, in this case, I'm looking at just the state of the security incident, there are 12 routes to closure, right? So is that, those talking about optimal paths, my planned paths, maybe there's some less than optimal paths in there as well. My average duration to close is 1 minute. Again, my demo data is terrible. And standard deviation and meeting duration. Now, we do start servicing a couple of different things here. Our summary and insights, our analyst workbench, and our KPI dashboard that we can include. And people always like to see the map right away. But I will tell you, this summary and insights exposes some really good data right off the bat to help guide me where I should focus. So tell me some analytics, some metrics, my average time to completion of records over time, my distribution of records by time to completion too, which shows me, yeah, most of these are closing very quickly, but yeah, I have some that are closing a lot longer and on the far right. As I scroll down, I see evidence of improvement opportunities born out of those rules and pattern detectors I mentioned earlier that I've included as part of this analysis. And we can see them right here. We bucket them in different categories, which you get to decide, by the way: performance, automation, conformance, and quality. And we scroll down, we see examples of them, right? So we see, I have one called manual work. This is a rule-based one that says, hey, I want to know when incidents were analyzed within 30 minutes. I see there are 9 records, 1% of them, of my 801, that are taking 12 minutes to complete. And the total inefficiency based on those 9 records is 2 hours. And again, in your organization, when you do this analysis, these numbers will be very different and probably a lot larger based on the scope that you do. You notice I also have an impacted KPI that I connected this to: my average time to contain, average duration, and SI average duration time. Right? Again, you can tie these into these very, very easily. I also see evidence of rework, incidents are going to contain multiple times, eradicate analysis. And right from here, not only is it telling me that this occurred, I can take action right from here. So from the proceed side, on the right-hand side, we could just look at just those incidents in the workspace, in my process map, but I can also take action right from here, like investigate. Now, again, going back to, I don't have a lot of records here, but I can do simple things like, let me take a look at these records. What's going on with these? Or I can use machine learning, which will allow me to analyze the short description or the description, you get to decide that, to surface themes or causes, or not causes, but the incident types that were packaged up in this group of incidents. For example, in this case, I see a lot of phishing, a lot of 0 day, right? So it gives me an idea. It's like, well, I have 5 of these 9 are phishing. I have another 3 that are DDO attack, cluster, payroll. These themes are in these. So we have 2 types. Again, we're using predictive intelligence cluster analysis to get this done. And we have 2 types: biggest clusters and highest quality. Highest quality are typically above 80%. Again, give me evidence of what is causing this. And we can do this for every one of these as well. You can see I even have one for compliance, right? I missed a step here as well. I have 50 of them that have done that. Can we take a look at these too? The answer is absolutely. And start looking at and addressing this very specifically. Once we do that, we can start diving into the analyst workbench. And this is where we start looking at the process map. And we affectionately call it internally sometimes a spaghetti map, because it can get very complex at times for good reason, right? So we'll dive into a couple of aspects and give you a bit of a harbor tour of how you can use this and where we can expose value very quickly. So the first thing we can see here, we're looking at very specifically the state changing. And this is seen in the views. And I'll show you how you can build this later on. But in this very simple scenario, we're just caring about the state changing from process start to process end. And you can see the different states, right? Draft, analysis, contain, eradicate, all those things you typically do for a security incident. On the left-hand side, we have a couple of different things: breakdown filters, variation analysis. Breakdown filters are something you can use to slice and dice the data. Again, you get to choose these. These are just fields on the security incident table. So things like assignment group, substate, reassignment craft, priority, subcategory. And each of these is something you can drill into. So maybe I want to drill into just this one assignment group and build that out. The answer is absolutely. I'm just going to look at just those 104 incidents for the SIRT assignment group and look at how they're operating. So very easy to dive in and look at any one of these attributes, and guess what? You can also build upon each one of these. So if I want to look at just SIRT and also say, you know what, I also want to look at my high priority that they're dealing with, I can do that. And again, look at and build a view that I care about. Another great tool that we include besides the improvement opportunities is the bottleneck analysis. This will help me expose where we are leaking time. By hitting this, in this case, we're going to show and highlight where there are gaps between different states. So in this case, we're sorting this by unique occurrences, meaning the unique incidents, security incidents that are occurring. I have 55, they're going from draft to analysis. It's taking 0 seconds, right? There's really no impact there. But what I love doing, I can sort this by total duration. My total duration will show me where the big gaps are very easily. And you can see, well, my analysis to review was taking 13 hours. I have 7 security incidents, 7 total, which means it'll showcase, do I have reoccurring, right? Repetitive incidents are doing this activity. It's taking an average of 2 hours. Now, what's the great thing about this? Each one of these is a filter. I can dive into just this one view. It's like, I want to look at all of my security incidents that went through this analysis or review phase. I can dive into this very easily by clicking on it, hitting apply, and building a view of just those incidents. So easy way to understand some of those attributes. Now, I want to dive into a little more complex version of this. And this is one where we call a multi-dimensional model, because I think this one's probably more interesting to a lot of folks in a SOC, where I want to understand how my security incidents are progressing with the associated remediation tasks that are assigned to this. So in this case, we're doing something very similar where we're looking at the security incident table. I have 930 records, 72 different routes, 111 days of average duration, right? 488 days of standard deviation and 0 for medium. Again, my demo data is not great. So we're seeing similar improvement opportunities. We're using the same detectors. What I wanted to showcase here was our ability to look at 2 things. I've included both my security incident remediation, the response tasks, as well as tying my task SLA table as well. So understanding the impact out of my 930 security incidents, I have 236 of those records have been breached, right? In terms of how they're being impacted. So I can start diving into, okay, well, when is this happening? How long is it taking? You know, which ones are these that are being impacted very, very easily? And the same thing for my security incident response task, being able to dive into each one of these independently to start saying, well, you know, how are these being built out for each one of these? So a very easy way to build these out. Again, start surfacing a bottleneck analysis to understand, well, okay, between my transitions between my security instance and my task SLA, or even my security response task, where are we leaking time? And guess what? Our contain phase is slowing us down. This is where we're breaching. It's taking way too long. Our average duration for 38 of my incidents, it's taking 4 years. And we also have, you notice, 102 total occurrences. That means I have security incidents that are doing this multiple times. In fact, one is doing it up to 3. What's the impact? The impact is seen right here. 369 years of inefficiency packaged up in these 38 incidents. Right? This may be something we should start focusing on, right? So again, this exposes some of that interconnections of how our different attributes between our response tasks and our security incidents themselves. And again, you can dive into each one of these independently very easily. And bringing up our connections. Remember, so one thing I wanted to point out, remember we've mentioned the number of routes. Connections in our model options means the number of routes that we want to expose. This is why we see our complexity change as I move this up. And maybe we want to focus just on a security incident response task. We can start diving into each one of these So in terms of, hey, this work in progress, it's, can we dive into this? The answer is absolutely, and start investigating just that attribute. And we can understand from a histogram, do we have any repetitions? We don't, which is a good news. We can see where our work has come from. It's come from assigned. We have one that went or missed our assigned step completely. Where did our work go to afterward? Went to close complete, went to process end. We had one that canceled. And right from here, we can start investigating, right? Show the records, apply machine learning, or even just focus on this. Or if we had enough records, run a root cause analysis on this as well. We can do this not only on the nodes themselves, but we can do this also on the transitions. So that means I can dive into, hey, I want to look at this transition from close complete to canceled. I can start looking at that. I can also start looking at work in progress to close complete and look at not only the repetitions, but the duration. How long did these take to transition? I see I have 2 records that did it in up to 30 seconds. I have some that did it to 45 seconds, and I have one that did it in a minute. Each one of these can become a filter, and I can start applying those and say, I just want to look at the ones that took longer than 30 seconds. And then we can start using our investigative tools to expose value as well. One of the tools we have in the transitions, as I mentioned earlier, is to expose work notes. And even though I don't have a lot of work notes, you have that ability to exposing and saying, okay, well, what do those work notes expose? I don't have any, but it'll actually analyze those and expose themes on why perhaps that transition took as long as it did, right? Or a reassignment. So a great way to expose, and provide evidence of why something transitioned the way it did. One other aspect I wanted to show, we mentioned assignment groups, right? In terms of how we can break down. Another great way to do this, also to expose the optimal path and suboptimal path, is to expose and use the variation analysis. Variation analysis is a great way to say, well, show me the different steps that we closed, specific, pieces of work or incidents. And so in this case, I'm going to do this by most records. We have 745 incidents. You can see that here. That took 0 seconds and have 3 steps. You can see those steps at the very bottom: process start, close, process end. Okay, not great, but that's what it did. And maybe these are valid steps for our workflows. We identified maybe we have 3 or 4, maybe up to 10 different variations that we accept as the optimal paths. But perhaps I want to know about the less than optimal ones. We have the ability from variation analysis to look at, well, show me the ones that are the most steps. And guess what? We have some ones that look not great, right? We have a bunch of outliers that are taking a long time that have 15 steps. You notice at the very bottom, draft analysis, contain, eradicates, going back into analysis. It's bouncing around a lot. And I'm just looking at state now. If I include both assignment group and now we start seeing the assignment groups in there as well, where we can start looking at the all of those steps for, and I don't have a lot of assignment groups in there. This shows both the assignment groups as well as the states that are going from. So you could expose maybe, hey, are we getting reassignments here as well? I don't see a lot of reassignments, but certainly we see bouncing around different states, perhaps unnecessarily. So maybe you want to start focusing on those, and we can do that very easily. So I can say, you know what? I want to see all my incidents that are greater than, I'm okay with up to 10 steps. After that, it's not good, right? I want to know all of them. So we can start focusing on just all of those records, all of those incidents that took more than 10 steps. Because guess what? Look, my average duration, most of these are not great. We need to do better here. I need to understand why this is happening. So I can take action. And I mentioned our ability to naturally pipeline into automation, and this is where we can do that on the far right side here. We have a couple of different ways to collaborate. I can say, hey, you know what? I want to share this. This is terrible. I need to make sure that this assignment group, this team is aware of it. I said, let's create a note. I'm going to say, hey, let's call the CISO out. this is terrible. We need a playbook for this. And post. So now that person will get a link to this process analysis as well as a screenshot. So then we can make a decision, should we start an improvement? And that's where we can tie directly into continual improvement right from here. Either create one right from this process mining analysis or link to an existing one. Maybe we already have a continual improvement record that is assigned to improving the security incident process, right? So I can attach to one or create one right from here. Another methodology is also to use the automation center to create and scope an automation from here as well. So you have that ability to quickly pipeline an improvement right from process mining through the analysis. Once we get that improvement in place, guess what? We can validate that it's good. And we can do that through our compare feature right here. And you notice one of the things, this box right next to compare, we have timestamps. So can we reanalyze this over time? The answer is absolutely. You notice I did it once on the 9th. I did it once on the 15th. So perhaps the 9th was before my change, and the 15th was after. I can hit my compare. Like I say, I want to look at the 15th. And then, or the 29th. And now we have new capability to say, you know what? I want to compare. Did we get better? And the answer is, yeah, we got actually, we did a little bit better, right? In terms of number of routes went down, number of records went down. So again, this could help validate, did my average duration go down? Did our velocity go up? Were we able to actually do more and deal with more security incidents? A great way to validate. And you can do this not just for comparing at timestamps. Maybe I want to compare this assignment group to another assignment group, right? So you could easily say, you know what, I want to compare that to Unix security, hit apply, and now we can do the same thing and compare any filter you care about. Which assignment group is servicing security incidents quicker, right? Very, very easy way to start comparing and drawing a conclusion where you can take action upon. One other thing I did want to point out, we have another capability on the far bottom where you can build a hypothesis around. And very simply put, it's a way to filter on a very specific attribute that you care about. So for example, I have two types, transition filters and condition filters. Transitions are very specific. I mentioned earlier, I care about in this scenario, security incident go from draft to review. And I want to give it a time constraint. I care about it when it doesn't get into place more than a day. It should be in the review phase within a day. And I build that view very easily. I hit apply, it'll build that view. I had saved it even. So this is my idle time. This is looking at all my incidents that took longer than a day to get into draft, right? So again, it's only 8 of them. But I can start looking and diving into each one of these, like, okay, what do these look like, right? Let me run a cluster analysis, like give me some evidence of what type of security incidents are taking that long to get to draft. And guess what? I can use my assignment, my breakdown filters to understand, okay, well, here are the assignment groups that are causing this. What are subcategories? Okay, well, it's DDoS issues. I don't have any subcategories on some of them. Are there, what kind of risk scores do they have? You have all of this power at your fingertips to understand and dive into and have that continued conversation. And I know we're running out of time. I did want to show before we end on how easy it is to build one of these. So I'm going to step you through that. It'll take us 3 minutes to get that done. I always get that question. This looks like it's hard to do. It's not. This is meant for all the process owners within an organization. So we're going to go ahead and create project. And the first thing we're going to do is scope the what data we care about. And that's really the key thing here. We want to know what data that we're going to scope, what data what process we're going to look at. In this case, we're going to look at a security incident. And again, it's going to use the ACLs you have already. So if you have access to security incident, you will have access to this in here. So there's my security incident table. And we do have templates, again, born out of the either ones you've created or in the content pack that we provide, like create project. That'll create the framework of the project itself. Now what we have to do is scope the time aspect, the filters, the things I care about changing within that project. So again, if you're used to filtering within ServiceNow, this should look very familiar. I'll say maybe active is false. Right? We want to typically look at security incidents that have been closed. I have 801. I'll hit save. Next thing we're going to do, and this is the one we have to do. Everything else is optional. This one we have to. This is what I care about changing. In Yokohama, we have a ability to get recommended fields. I'm going to say I'm going to add my state. Again, these are just fields on the table, so I can choose any field that has activity. I'll hit save. Next thing we're going to do is add breakdowns, things how I want to slice and dice my workflow. And again, I'll have some recommended fields here, but again, you have all the fields that are available to you. I'll hit assignment group, contact type, and priority. I'll hit save. We also include some use cases like approvals and SLA breach out of the box. Next thing I'll do is add improvement opportunities. And this is where we're going to add those detectors, right? We have a library of them in the content pack. I've created a few myself as well. I'll hit add from library. Again, we have two types, rule-based and automated. I'll add all of them. You know, things like, no analysis, my contain step, incidents that took over 5 hours to escalate to critical and critical priority, and as well as the automated ones that would show the pattern detectors, like ping-ponging and rework. I'll hit apply to project. And that's it. We're done. All we have to do is review in mine. It's going to give me a review page on all the attributes we've done. I'll hit mine project. In your sub-production environment, your customers are allowed to do this up in the sample mine. If you're fully licensed, you can do a full mine. In this case, I'll hit sample. You'll hit confirm in mine. This will package up all the audit logs, send it to the machine learning environment, which will take, for 3,600 records, a minute or so to get done, and we're done. You can schedule these, whenever you'd like as well. So if I want to do this off hours, there is no impact to performance in your production environment to get this done because we leverage the machine learning environment. And we'll let that run. One last thing I did want to show everyone was the ability to embed that process mining map into this dashboard we first started with. Right. So how great would it be? So as I'm looking at this KPI or this metric to understand, well, what's impacting this average time to identify? And I modified this dashboard to include a process map. This is now a new element you can add to a dashboard that you've built and a process map that you've analyzed. So in this case, this arms the person that's looking at this dashboard to say, oh, I see it's taking 11 minutes to get from contain to eradicate. What's the impact, right? And even allow them to look at the records or even do a work note analysis on that transition. And even dive into any one of these to say, well, let's dive into this review node, where is it coming from, right? And be able to start diving into my outgoing work, my incoming work, and looking all the detail there as well. So again, it arms the people who are looking, and the teams are looking at this data to understand, well, where is my time gap? I'm looking at state here. Maybe I want to look at assignment group. You get to decide that. All right. So I just want to end, since we're running out of time, on the couple of resources that we have available to you. So a ton of resources out there in terms of for process mining. We have on-demand training for process mining. We do have a great, active, vibrant community site for process mining that includes literally dozens of sessions like this within our Process Mining Academy. We also have a use case series, which are short 5-minute sessions, and we also have monthly office hours to help answer questions for our customers. So all of these are available to you. I would highly recommend signing up for the Process Mining Academy and the use cases. These are some quick QR codes to get there as well. I think we're running out of time. Bilal, did we have any open questions?
No questions in the chat.
I do see a question about licensing. I would say I'd recommend for this to please discuss that with your account teams, that we have a lot of different open options around this and flexibility to allow you to analyze any workflow within in your environment, both within the platform and even externally. So lots of great ways to leverage process mining. And if you think about how the interconnected workflows that impact each other, this becomes really like one of those game-changing technologies to help break down silos of data and workflows. With that, I will say thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. And again, one of the things I would highly recommend is signing up for the Academy sessions. We love hearing feedback, and we appreciate your input as we mature the product as well. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Bilal. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Appreciate everyone.
Thank you, everybody.